Good afternoon, you top of the table Reds. It's Dan at the LFC transfer room. We are top of the league. We got a clean sheet. We scored 2 goals. Mo Salah is a record breaker. And you're with us today live. Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, Liverpool did win 2-0 against Ipswich. We didn't have it all our own way, but it wouldn't be an opening day at Liverpool if that wasn't the case. Boys, you're with Drew, you're with CT, you're with me, Hein, you're with me, Dan, of course. Get in the chat. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your negativity about the first half because I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying you eating your tears. So come and get it involved here. Right then, Drew, I'll go straight into you from all the way across the other side of the planet. What's it like watching that first game back in the Premier League? Are you impressed?
Definitely impressed. First half was sleepy, but so was I. So, take what you can get. 3 points off the board from the start. I don't get many of those wins at the early match kickoff, which is 4:30 in the morning for me. So two goals and 3 points to start my Saturday when I have work in like an hour and a half. I'm buzzing.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear you having to make these sacrifices like I had to make these sacrifices for all 3 Premier League games that they played over in the States. In the pre-season, I enjoyed it. Never again, thank you very much. I'll go down to yourself there, all the way over in Europe. How are you enjoying your day? Top of the table, slot Reds. Who misses Klopp, eh?
Very well. I was actually at work watching the game. I said it last night on stream. Fuck capitalism for like 2 hours because no, thank you. But yeah, it was all good, all good. Obviously, as you said, a slow first half, a slow start for the season. It was, to be honest, it was fairly funny because it seems like I blame Twitter or X or whatever it's called nowadays for this weird thing that's going on around football. I've seen stuff at halftime about slot ball, and then 45 minutes later we've created like 3xg in 45 minutes, and it's been a pleasure to watch. So maybe it wasn't that bad after all.
It could have been 6-0, let's be honest. CT, another part of the planet. We are literally the International Reds today. Tell me, how are you feeling all the way, I believe, down under?
Absolutely buzzing, lads. So I'm not in my own city. Actually, I flew across city to visit some family. We had a watch party tonight. So we had all the emotions of the first half, the second half, finishing on top. And now we're drinking and having fun, and great to be with you guys and the chat talking about this first up win for Arne Slot. And we did it the hard way, but great second half and lots to take away from the game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. Few moments of frustration, I think, in the first half. I think we'll go into have a little discussion on the first half. It was, for me, completely to be expected. This is a team, Ipswich, haven't been up in the Premier League for 22 years. This is the biggest day of a generation for that football club. There is people who've grown up watching Ipswich and are now full-grown adults and have never seen them play in the Premier League. This is massive. This is huge. So for me, what was the most important was to keep Ipswich quiet, and I felt we did a really, really good job at doing that. I think we had a really good opportunity to be able to try and implement our style of play. Ipswich didn't always play the way that we wanted. They weren't pressing all the time. They were allowing us to have that ball, and we were having to play it long, and Salah was doing Salah things, of course, in that first half, and he was our real only outlet, to be totally honest, for me in that first half. And it was frustrating, but that's to be expected. I mean, clubs who've come up from the Championship, and we watched it last season with Luton, there are teams who are going to have the ability to be a problem. And at home, Ipswich are a very, very tough team to get anything out of anyway. And I thought we did really, really well. Some frustration moments from a couple of players. But I'll go to you, Drew. I mean, it's not fair to start kind of saying certain players or whatever are not achieving what you want them to achieve yet. I mean, this is new for everybody, and ultimately coming up against an Ipswich team who are highly motivated, a very energetic stadium, which everyone stayed in. The fans all stayed. Surely this is just a positive situation that we didn't do anything silly like we did last season multiple times.
Yeah, this could have definitely been a banana peel, and there's no point giving final grades out 45 minutes into the first game of the season. So I was very happy with how we dealt with the pressure the first half. There were a few shaky moments, but I felt like for me the word was patience. Like it seemed like the players were very patient, very composed. Like before, we invited pressure on where Virgil or Allison would take the ball back and we'd wait for them to come up. Sometimes we'd hit it long, but there wasn't that kind of frantic nature to the game that you might have seen, like when the ball's going down one way, then the back. I think Slot said he wanted to control the ball more and kind of kill the game. And it just looked like it was getting the rust off in the first half. Like there were a few misplaced passes, but like in the second half, the quick little link ups in those little triangles that freed someone in the midfield. I think our first goal was scored from a little link up play and then going down the wing. But it was just one of those ones where it's the first 45 minutes, and you said it before the stream started. Ipswich is just first game back in the Premier League. The fans are buzzing. The energy was so high. The adrenaline would be pumping with those players, and Liverpool handled it really well because that was an onslaught from them for the first 20 minutes, and then they started getting a little gas. And second half, Liverpool turned on, and they couldn't cope with it.
100% true. I completely agree with you. CT, your thoughts on that first half? Of course, not what maybe we all wanted to see. I think we all would have liked to see an early goal. I think we'd like to have seen one settle us down. But what positives were you taking from that first half, of which was a little bit frustrating, probably is fair to say?
Yeah, it was an arm wrestle, and I guess the positive I'll take from it was they didn't really look like they were going to score. We just couldn't get a hold of the possession and, and do what we wanted to do. But they also weren't really threatening too much either. Whereas I think last year, last season, they would have had a couple of clear-cut chances. This one, they had a couple of half chances. But, I wasn't worried about that. I was more worried about us getting possession, trying to do what we want to do and get some shots on target. 0 shots on target in the first half. I don't know if we had a game like that last season, did we?
What, when we hadn't got any shots on target?
Yeah, in a half of football.
No, probably not, to be fair. But I mean, last season was a little bit different. We were taking a lot of 5 and 6 out of 10 possible chances, weren't we? Really, there was a lot of shots which weren't high quality, of which we may got a shot on target, but it didn't so much create something of real value. And I think that'll be a good point for us to go into the second half, because I actually think we flipped that completely on its head. Some of the chances that we created, when I say it could have been 5 or 6, I genuinely think it could well have been, because we had some really, really good chances, really high quality ones. As Mihai said, we posted, 3 GA in the end or something like that in that second half. That's a massive one, especially as, like you said, CT, we had 0.11 in the first half, so it was a massive change when it came to going forward and getting those proper chances. Mihai, first half again, I think it's important. There's a psychology to it, isn't there, when it comes to playing against certain teams? And we didn't do this against Luton last year. We allowed to play into the emotion of a football match, where today I felt that we didn't. I felt we were basically, this was about business. This was about you guys. This is a big party. This is excitement. I saw Ed Sheeran about 945 times. I thought he was going to get substituted on at one point. On this occasion, he got off and they lost. And I don't have to see his face for another 6 months until we see him at Anfield. With this, for me, the psychology is sometimes you just have to weather the storm for a little bit. And I don't know whether or not I'm wrong in thinking that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's actually a very big person that I love in another sport. Rafa Nadal said something very similar to this, is where you feel like your opponent is better than you. In a time of a match, you just have to kind of accept it, be concentrated on what you can do better, try and keep your level at the same, try and be concentrated, don't let go of the match, which we kind of did. I was a bit the thing that I was worried about in the first half was that I've seen our players get frustrated like a lot. I've seen them yell at each other at times. I've seen them yell at the refs and stuff like that. And so that kind of worried me a bit, because I didn't want to get us pulled into that atmosphere, that the ground was trying to basically emulate. But in the end, it all worked out. And I know that not everyone is a big fan of referring to XG, but for me, I think is a good way to kind of understand how the game went if you don't want to rely solely on your eyes, because we all have our biases, right? And for me, that's why I mentioned XG. And for me, the fact that it is it is obviously a problem to only create 0.1 xg in the first half against Ipswich, sure, but then you also have to take into account the context of it. I'm thinking that it's Slot's first match. It's maybe some nerves in there, and obviously the opposition is on their debut on their debut in the last two decades, sorry, in the Prem. So yeah, I'm thinking it's in the end 0-11. Sorry, yeah, I was a bit off. So for me, all good in the end, and especially the second, which we'll get into, was a big let's say green flag for Slot and the team.
No, definitely. And no, I don't think they said in the commentary, for those who don't watch on TNT Sports, and TNT Sports, he said that the coolest man in Portman Road will be Kieran McKenna. No, it's the Dutch fella in ours, who at no point even looked flustered. We scored a goal and he hardly even celebrated. We're expecting us to see a Jurgen Klopp sliding and pulling his hamstring and, ripping players up out of it when celebrating. And it's a real difference. And there's much more of a surgical method to the way that we're going now. And it does seem to be that it is literally trust this process, trust the way that we're playing, and that we will get what we need. We will get to where we're going as long as he brings them off at half time. I think we did some good stuff defensively. I think that we, as you rightfully said, we limited them to what a header from Jacob Greaves, which the Peter Jury nearly had an accident having heard, but it was nothing. And then otherwise, a tame Hutchison shot. There was nothing that kind of frightened us. There was nothing there that was like, oh my God. Where last season, and this isn't just on a one or two occasions, we're conceding high XG chances. We're conceding ones where it's like we could concede here. Where today, there was at no point I felt like, God, we could concede a goal here. So defensively, everything was, for me, pretty much where I wanted it to be. Couple of little moments. Maka got caught in two minds early in the first half where he went to take a shot. And then he could have gone to pass it, and he got caught out. But at the end of the day, Szoboszlai and Trent did the job that needed to be done, and it ended up being nothing. Going into this, Slot's obviously got them back into that first half, and I mean, you've got to give him all the praise, haven't you? He obviously got his message out to them to say, this is what I want you to do. And we come out in that second half, and before we know it, Luis Diaz is having a really good chance. Our first shot on target comes within a few minutes. So this is a manager already who knows what he's seeing, and he knows what he needs to be doing to fix it. And I love that. CT, we come out of that first half, got the clean sheet. That's great. Second half is coming up. They'll tire. I think we've had this conversation before under Klopp, where we know that other teams that we played against struggle to keep up the intensity. What did you take from when we went into the second half? Did you notice anything that was, what was it you were noticing that we were doing better? Because whether it was Ipswich retiring, or do you think we were just starting to make the right decisions more often?
Yeah, I thought we started to get first to the ball. We're obviously getting in there a lot more, making better runs, more direct. Also, first half, we did get a lot of corners, and that's a sign that, we weren't creating enough chances, but we were getting those corners, and we that continued as well. I'm not sure how many corners we had at the half. It must have been at least 6 to 8 corners, if my memory is right. But
yeah, it was ridiculous number of corners, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were getting in behind, but they were just the last lines trying to defend, and we just couldn't, get that big shot on target. But it was coming, we just weren't converting. But yeah, the second half, I thought we were more direct. The midfield got a hold of the ball, and we just were a lot more calm. Obviously, and Gravenberch was a huge standout, and we'll talk about our man of the match. But from the first half to the second, it was huge.
No, definitely. Drew, second half comes in there. We saw probably the other half of what Arne Slot was asking this club to do, asking his players to go out there and do, wasn't he? And they'd done the defensive side of the work, and then all of a sudden it just clicked into place. I mean, did you notice anything that really stood out for you, what we were doing differently? Because to be honest with you, it seemed quite subtle, but it just started to click.
And I think that's the word, is it started to clicking. Like I felt like the link up play was much crisper. Like the passes were short, quick. There were just little moments where it'd be like a 1-2 and it broke free. I think that was the difference between the first and second half. In the first half, it'd be like you'd pass it to like a Zabasla, and Zabasla's touch would be offered. The
Yeah.
return pass would have been a little astray, and I felt like those moments were not coming off in the first half. Whereas the second, it was very intricate, quick passing that freed up space. Because it seemed like there were many times when Liverpool played a few quick passes, like real tight spaces, and all of a sudden so much space opened up. They beat that first line midfielder, had so much time on the ball, and then everyone was just bombing towards the box. So I think for me, it was just the intricate passing just started clicking.
Yeah, definitely. It was just those couple of little frustrating moments where a pass is say be over hit or under hit or just not coming up quite as quickly as it needed to be. And in that second half, it was literally as if though it was just a case of the right word and the right ear about what you need to do in that next moment, and it worked. And we saw these opportunities coming through. And Slaughter had a really Jota comes in and has a really good chance with his header, which he probably should have finished just before he actually gets his goal. We'll probably go into that there. Record breaker Mohamed Salah already involved, and it's inevitable, like he is. Mihai, I'll ask yourself there. First goal that comes in there, that was something which we probably didn't do last season with Salah, to be honest with you. I think he might have taken a little bit longer or maybe tried to do it himself, but I felt like he's really made the right decision in that situation. His decision making was back, shall we say.
Yeah, and it's in the end, as you said, it was all about the timing. It seemed like in the second half, after I obviously we can kind of praise Ipswich for the press in the first half. They've been pressing us pretty hard, and we've been playing out from the back, fairly risky at times. And so I think in a lot of moments we just couldn't make it out of our own half with the way it was going. But in the second half, it felt like the timing was great on pretty much every ball. And as you said, you look at that first goal, and I'm just thinking that it's if we can get to a level, if it's even realistic, if we can get to a level where that's the consistency and we're consistently playing that way, then I think we're gonna well, I don't want to use big words, but we're gonna be unstoppable, right? Because it's kind of the brand of football that we're used to: quick counters, 1-2 passes, and in front of their goal, and just having someone have a one-on-one, and then that's kind of it. Because I look at it, and then the Trent pass, you can slate him for his defensive positioning and whatnot, however you want, but that pass, I don't know how many players in the world see that. And then obviously with Salah, the same thing. I think just a second or two later, as you said, and he doesn't make the pass right at that time, and Jota's going to be in an offside position, then it's gone. But I think it sort of just clicked, as Drew said. Everything just went right. The timings we found were better for the passes, for the finishing as well. So yeah, it was kind of the perfect build up for me to see Trent tearing up the defense, and then have Salah create, as he's done a lot in the past few seasons. And yeah, obviously not only to concentrate on his creator role now. 9 years in a row, is it, with a goal in the
He's got 9 goals in opening in 8 seasons. He didn't score against Chelsea. That was the game that he didn't score. Did he get an assist?
He assisted Diaz.
He did assist Diaz. I'm trying to remember. I was remembering correctly. Look at that, a whole year later, I'm still remembering correctly. Yes, unbelievable. Mo Salah record breaker. By the way, for everyone, we will be discussing the Joe Gomez situation a little bit later on, of course, but I want to try and keep the positivity, because that was an opening of negativity from the start. When we're talking about the potential move of Joe Gomez, who is still looking at moving on. That doesn't surprise me. I believe that a number of people made this clear at the start of this new regime, that maybe they wanted to discover new opportunities, and Joe Gomez, I believe, is one of those players, and I don't blame him. That's my thing, but we'll discuss that in a little bit. So second half, within 5 minutes, it's 2-0, and Mo Salah's obviously scored this record-breaking goal. It seemed to be a case of that, it was a case of how many did Liverpool want to score now, and I thought that their goalkeeper Walton had done really, really well, to be honest, on a number of occasions. He made some great saves. Jacob Greaves was, I've actually talked about him on earlier stream actually about a signing that we could have made. He was fantastic, a really, really good player, and without him, it could well have been a much higher situation without him. So, CT, I'll go to yourself there. Gravenberch, let's discuss him. I thought he was absolutely excellent today in that 6. I thought he was an absolutely excellent player. He did everything that you would have asked for, and had we just bought him for £51 million from Real Sociedad, everyone would be having an accident. What do you think?
Absolutely. So one thing I want to talk about with Gravenberch tonight was preseason specifically. You know, you see a case now of a player having a really good preseason, and that was what I was preaching last season. I said, look, we've got this guy in. It was late in the window. You know, we got Endo as well, but you know, he needed some time, and he's still young. And I thought he copped some unfair criticism last season because he come in and he wasn't even his first full year with the club. He's still young, and we all know he's got quality.
Oh yeah.
I haven't come across a Liverpool fan that doesn't feel like he didn't have the quality. He just needed to get that good pre-season under him and hit the ground running, and that's exactly what's happened. I don't know if it's the manager now coming in, maybe they do share some connection being from the homeland, but with that said, I think there were some worrying signs early in terms of figuring things out with the 6. We talked about it with the transfer window. But in terms of what Slot wants and the ball playing skill set, he has it in spades. And I thought one of the moves he did I love was the turn. He had pressure under. He was under a lot of pressure. Turned his defender around and got the ball forward to Diaz. And a lot of those plays were in the reel tonight. You could probably do a 2-minute highlight reel of just Gravenberch moves tonight. And look, it's really positive for the future and this season. I don't want to sound like I work for FSG, but it could be like a brand new signing. And the 6, we still, I still want us to add a 6, but more performances like this will quiet down that noise. And I think I'm just glad we have this kind of player, this profile as well. He's got the height, he's got the size, and he's got the skill set as well.
Yeah, definitely. He really does. And obviously over here at the LFC transfer room, I am paid for by John Henry, so I will say this. As you can see, I'm waiting for my yacht to be delivered. I thought Gravenberch was absolutely brilliant, to be honest with you, and he was a forgotten man. Like, he was a player last season. He really didn't get a lot of football because he he didn't quite fit with what we were trying to do. To be honest, he feels a lot more like an Arne Slot sort of transfer than he ever looked like he was going to be a Klopp transfer, shall we say. He just wasn't really in the mold of being somebody who was, more technical, a little bit more better with his feet, a little bit less of a workhorse, which we were kind of used to under Klopp with your Milners and your Wijnaldums and your Hendersons and your Fabinhos. These are all players who weren't technically gifted footballers, shall we say, especially to a level of being able to play the way that Gravenberch can. But they were more workers, they were fighters, they were your midfield dogs, shall we say. So I thought he was brilliant, and somebody else who thought he was brilliant. And by the way, I was actually had to double check these words, and Jay Muse has put this in for me. We just found your comment. I've got actually loads of them. Slot Gravenberch was immense today. I honestly never thought I would hear Arne Slot actually give any individual praise to any footballer, because all pre-season he's literally just been said, "Oh, what did you make of this player?" And he's gone, yeah, I thought he was pretty good, kind of thing. Like, the fact that he's come out and said that is really good praise, and I think he deserves it. How it wasn't for Mo Salah with a goal and assist today, I think he's your man of the match, to be honest. I can't really look past him for any other position, to be totally honest. Gravenberch. We have Stefan Bajcetic, don't we? He is a 6. He's a player. He will play as a 6, as much as people may not want him to be a 6 and they have opinions on him in other places on the pitch. Is it fair to say that it would possibly make sense, perhaps, having seen the lack of players that could well be available between now and January, to play Gravenberch and Bajcetic between those two positions, and Endo, of course, but he seems to be out of favour? Is that so much of a bad idea from what we've seen so far? I know it's only Ipswich, but you're only as good as your last game. You're only as good as the way you played last time. And for me, it's his shirt, shall we say?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that I still believe signing a 6 would have made our lives a lot easier.
Would have on
And
here.
sorry.
Would have made it a lot easier on here.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think that if it doesn't work, then we're gonna go back and think. Like for me, last season was a good example in the sense that we've looked vulnerable at the back during the season, and then at the end of the season, kind of caught up to us, and we kind of fallen out of a title challenge in the end in the last like 7 or 8 matches. And at that point, I think we looked at the team and we thought, is it because of the manager? Is it because of the tactics? Is it because we don't have a world-class DM who can cut passing lanes and basically brush everything aside in front of the defense like Fabinho used to do? We don't know. So it's kind of like, for me, that's kind of the thing. What's interesting though, and one thing that I wanted to say, is Slot saying that Gravenberch has all the right tools to be a 6. That's very interesting because someone said the exact same thing on stream last evening. So I don't want to say like, I have a
Shave your head, Mihai. Shave it.
yeah, that's the next step, bro. I mean, hairline's not looking that great either. But
Oh God.
yeah, fair enough.
Eyebrows as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to develop a different accent, and that's it. All set. But yeah, for me, Gravenberch is, physically he looks like he's a good fit for the position, and also I think for his age, he's played in some very big clubs, and he's played in some very big competitions. Obviously, when he was at Ajax and then Bayern, he's used to playing in the Champions League. So I don't think he'd be extremely, I don't think it would be an extreme risk necessarily to play him in that position in any sort of game that we may have during the season. It's just that at the moment, as of right now, if we want to go for and challenge for a big trophy, is he going to be able to perform week in, week out, put these sort of performances in? Me personally, I don't think he is. That's not saying he's not gonna be in the future, but at the moment, I don't want to take stuff away from. For me, he's man of the match, so it's not like I'm gonna be, I'm not gonna make up negative scenarios to talk about. It's just that, in perspective, if you want to look at it, I'm not sure that without a DM we'll be able to challenge for a big trophy. I've predicted us to win the Champions League just for the fun of it in the predictions, but I have that. I who knows? It's a knockout tournament in the end, but yeah, for me that's kind of how I feel at the time.
Yeah, 100%. A couple of notable shouts, and Jay Muse is, I mean, he's always normally on it anyway. Kanate comes on for Kwanzaa because Kwanzaa received a bit of a knock. He looked a little bit downbeat on the bench, but it shows a level of ruthlessness from Slot, which is what we need. And he went in there, he made the right decision. He brought Kanate on, and props to Kanate. I felt that he was someone who might have struggled a little bit in this system. And to be honest with you, he played brilliantly in that second half. I thought he was great. I thought he'd worked really hard. I thought he'd done everything you would have wanted him to do. And I mean, it may well be coincidental because we played better in the second half. He also looked better in the second half. But he should, as things stand, he should well be our starting centre-back. And I'm glad to see the fight from it. I like to see the fact that he looks like he's not taking the situation of Kwanzaa be coming in and, oh, God, right, I'm being replaced. It's a case of, what, there's competition to be had there. And he's taking it well. And, hopefully Kwanzaa's injury isn't too serious, just something minor. And then the two of them can obviously compete for the shirt for next week at home to Brentford. So we'll have a quick discussion in the meantime while people put their comments and bits and pieces in the chat. Hit a like for us, please. Put a comment in, subscribe, of course, share it far and wide. It's all appreciated here. We'll go into the little discussion about Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez, Paul Joyce stated he didn't travel because he is weighing up his options and is wanted by a number of teams, which doesn't surprise me. Aston Villa is a team that's been quoted. By Munich apparently have also been made aware. They've lost a couple of centre-backs themselves. He was on the way out of the door earlier in the season with the Gordon switcheroo that was meant to be on the go with around about £45 million. I'll go to Drew. Joe Gomez, he wants away, doesn't he? It seems to be. I don't. This is the club saying time to go. I think he's made his mind up that he wants a new challenge somewhere else. Do you think that's the case, or am I being too much FSG in?
Kind of seems like it's a bit of both, because I think he made some like post where he was like excited, like 10 years, kind of things like that, on his Instagram. And I just don't think it really looks early doors like he's the kind of player that fits in. Like, I feel like he was the big James Milner last year, utility player, came across the line, like played right back, center back, left back. I think that was so valuable, especially in a Klopp team. But if you look at like the substitutions today from slot 3 defensive substitutions, and they were very much Robertson out, Tsimikas in, Bradley for Trent, and then Kanate and Kwanzaa. Like, that's very much, left back, right back, center back. That's not like a hybrid in any way. So it doesn't seem like he's looking for that kind of Arsenal back line where you have center backs all across the lines. So I think that it's kind of the situation where Gomez is looking at his future. And, unfortunately for him, he's had a terribly injury-ridden career. And even though he's played some he's had valuable moments in our squad, especially for, I believe it was the Champions League run back in 19. Like, he's had moments in our team that are valuable, and I feel like people will always look back and, kind of that player will appreciate what he did, but just didn't quite work out. Injuries really hindered his career, but he's been fit the last year or so. So it might be that point where it's like, is he going to ever get that full season run in, or like, and it doesn't look like it's going to be at Liverpool. Like, I don't know if at this stage he just wants to be a first choice center back, because he definitely has the talent to be that in the team, but it's probably not Liverpool.
If you want to be honest, I actually think that Joe Gomez's greatest strength is also his greatest weakness, is because of his versatility. He is not the best player in any of our positions, if that makes sense. He is not the best right back. He's not the best left back. He's not the best centre back on either side of that pitch. He's just very good at all of those situations, which makes him always second choice. Does that make sense? He's never actually going to be the person who holds the shirt. He's just going to be the guy who comes in for substitutions, injuries, blah, 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 blah. And he does a great job. And for us as a fan base and as a club, that's excellent. But for him as a person, as you rightfully said, he probably does identify himself. I don't know. Maybe he just wants to play centre-back. Maybe that's where he sees himself. And like you say, I think ultimately that's going to have to come at a different club, in my opinion. I don't want that to be the case. I'd love Joe Gomez to say I think he's been absolutely incredible for us, and of course, owes us nothing. But if his mind's made up and he wants to go and get first team football somewhere, well, I mean, we have to support that situation if that's the way that it is. But it is tough. It is really, really tough to be able to sit there and say to him, okay, Joe, what can I say to you as on a slot? Can any of us sit here and say to you, you're going to be my first choice centre back? We know that's not true. We know he's not going to be able to say to him, you're getting in front of Kwanzaa, because you're not. You're getting in front of Kanate, because you're not. No one's getting in front of Virgil van Dijk. No one's getting in front of Trent, and no one's getting in front of Robbo or Tsimikas, because I think actually the Tsimikas-Robbo inversion, that could be a lot closer this season than we might have thought in the past. I thought the two of them. I was very surprised at Robbo's start. I was very surprised that Maka started. I know a few people have said in the chat there, what about Maka's performance? It wasn't great, but the fellas had hardly any of a break. He went to, they won the Copa America, and he's the one who's probably had the least time on the pitch. Trent Alexander-Arnold, similar to. So his substitution on with Robbo's made complete sense to me, to be honest with you. I felt like they were the players you needed to come on for players who had a little bit more time. Bradley had a great preseason. Tsimikas had a great preseason. So those, I think, were almost pre-planned. I'd have hoped maybe had Kwanzaa not got an injury, maybe McAllister would have been swapped out for somebody within the midfield. But again, I don't know that. CT, your views on Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez it seems to be that a number of people were probably asked or allowed to come in for a conversation to say, what do you want to do? And I think Joe Gomez was one of the people who said, I'd like to go. what do you think? What do you think we need to do? Obviously, if he does leave, because it leaves us with Nat Phillips and Seth Vandenberg as our other options, basically.
Yeah, the last part is the concern, but I'll rewind and start by saying, look, it has my blessing if his choice is to leave and to pursue regular minutes, then I understand, and I understand the club stance as well. You guys hit the nail with Drew and yourself, Dan, about the situation that we're in. He's just a victim of us being such a deep team, and he's last season was huge. He was consistent. We had the injuries at right back, and then he filled in left back, sorry, as well. And he just hasn't played much as a centre back. Also, and you brought up that point where maybe that is where he wants to play a lot more. And we have those same questions about Sep. So that ties into what you asked me about. What are we going to do? I mean, does this add more legs to this new link with Gonzalo and Asio, and maybe another a left-sided centre back as well? Because I mean, if I'm betting, Joe won't be here after the window by today's report, so we better bring someone in, because what are we going to do? And already today we see Kwanzaa getting a knock, Kanate having to come on already. That is kind of the strength of having a Joe Gomez, is that he is always going to play. It's frustrating that a player does want to leave because they want first team minutes, but if he stays for a season, he's going to play, because all it takes is one or two injuries. But unfortunately, a quality player is always going to want to be first choice. So it is what it is. We just have to make sure that we get the right fit, make sure that we get someone in who is okay with maybe not starting, because we still have a lot of quality, but the player with a mindset that they have to want to fight for their spot, but not like Chelsea, where there's 7 players that they've got to
Royal
compete
Rumble. It's like the gym on the 1st of January in there in CT. Tell you what, it must be hard getting a parking space down at Cobham, mustn't it, if you're going up there? Might have to get the bus in. I think you're right. There is, fighting for a place, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're in a situation where, can you feasibly ask him to fight for a place now, knowing full well who's in front of him? He's done his 9 years here. He's a London lad. It would make perfect sense to me. Had a certain Mark Gahey make his move up to the northeast, perhaps he would be an option for Crystal Palace. They'll be flush with a few quid, and he would be a very good deputy, to be totally honest with you. Drew, very quickly on Joe Gomez, your thoughts? He's been a great servant to the club, but it looks like, as CT has said, it looks like the next couple of weeks are going to be the final weeks of Joe Gomez.
I'll pass it down to Mihai. I think I've spoke on Joe. I'm a little sleepy though, Dan, so apologies if I messed that up. Mihai?
Oh, Mihai, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I think Dan's point regarding his, I'm going to be the third one to say it 100% correct then. So
your checks are in the post, boys. Appreciate it. Nice one.
Yeah, so I think that was a pretty good point on Gomez, in the sense that indeed he's, and someone was saying as well in the chat, Derek, I think in the chat, saying that he want to get back into the England squad, and obviously being on the bench for us is not going to do that for him. So nothing to complain about there. I'm just the only thing that I'm hoping for is we don't make the same mistake. Now, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if Gomez leaves, I think we all agree that we need a center back? Because I remember that season, the 2020-21 season, after we won the league, I remember, Lovren leaving, and I was thinking, okay, so we're going to sign a center back in the next few weeks. Wonder who's it going to be? And it was fucking no one.
It was Seth Vandenberg, what you on about? And he had a stinker at Preston, and then we loaned him for 4 years.
Yeah. And now it looks like we don't know what to do with him. Yeah. I don't know. I think obviously that was, it was an extremely weird season, what happened with injuries that time. But even now, when you look at it, I think we really can let ourselves, basically, who are we going to have at center back if Gomez leaves? Then it's going to be Van Dijk, Kwanzaa, Konate as first team regulars, and then who are you going to bring from the bench?
Set Vandenberg as it stands, because apparently 20 million quid is too much for him, which is wild, to be totally honest with you. Yeah, it's not great. And as it
Would they
stands
look at
right now, who
just
knows?
quickly add? Would they look at someone like Endo? And one of the reasons to keep him could be to have him as a fourth string emergency option.
More than likely, but it'll be panic stations, and I think for LFCX would have an absolute meltdown had that become the situation. To be totally honest with you, it's already bad enough now that we won a football match 2-0. If we don't sign a 6 or a centre back, or Joe Gomez leaves, it's going to be a bin fire tonight. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Yeah. So finally, we'll go into it. We know Mo Salah is more than likely going to be your man of the match. We know Gravenberch was up there, but I'd like to hear a little bit outside shouts from all of you. Who was the person who stood out for you? A bit of an unsung hero. I'll go to you, Drew. Who was your player out there who was your sort of, he came on, did his work that he needed to do, and quietly impressed you?
For me, it was Trent. I felt like he didn't have, much time in the preseason. The England duty probably just was massive disappointment for him outside of his penalty. And to come back into the side, I felt that it seemed like Ipswich was attacking Robbo mostly in the first half. But, for someone who can't defend, I thought Trent did a fair job throughout his whole 70-minute cameo. And his link-up play, his passing was on par. I think, he had to find his range in the first half, but second half, he had that through ball into Salah that led to Jota's goal, and that was a key moment for me in the game that really broke it open. And he continued to, show his range and his versatility in passing. And I think that was one part of the game, or one player, that just absolutely was necessary for us breaking Ipswich down, and I think deserves the plaudits outside of Gravenberch and Salah.
Yeah, 100%. Mihai, your unsung hero of the game today. Who was the one who impressed you the most? Who wasn't quite catches the headlines?
I think the majority of people will go for Salah, Trent, or obviously Graf as man of the match. But I mean, obviously, rightfully so. But as an unsung hero, I'd mention Luis Diaz, who I've kept on saying he should be on the bench for today's game, and I was hoping for Cody Hakpo to start. But I think today Diaz was great in terms of he did have a huge miss, which sure, end product problems with him. It's kind of happened a lot last season as well. But I think today, he was really active. I think he pressed, he ran to get lots of balls. I think seemed like they were lost, which I really appreciate that in a player. You see them running towards the ball, even then it's a 50-50. You don't want if you're going to keep it in and on, get to it first or anything like that. But for me, he looked sharp. He did look sharp in preseason as well. I just, I have this thing with him. I'm currently impressed by him in a lot of moments. I'm just not sure if he offers a lot in terms of finishing, like Miku said in the chat.
No, 100%. I think with Diaz, this is my point again. If I could put his work rate in with someone like Slotter's finishing, we've got one of the best players on the planet. But the problem is that we just don't have the end product that comes with Diaz. We do so much good work, so much off the ball, so much on the ball, so much direct running, putting balls into places where you need them to be. But at times you just kind of, you go, well, where's the end bit? Like, we've got 85% of what we need, and then there's just 15% that sometimes is lacking. And I felt today that he was brilliant. And I did say a good while ago that Diaz would be first choice, even though Gakpo played so well. I just believe it's Diaz's shirt. It's Diaz's to lose, and it's going to take a lot for Gakpo to keep Diaz out of the team because of how much work he does, because he works so hard. It would take Gakpo to do everything that Diaz has done and add some goals to that, and that's tough. That is going to be a difficult task for him to go and do. So yeah, Diaz, absolutely agree with that one. Who have I not been to? Go on. Unmute yourself, who I've not been to ask this question. It's CT. CT, who is your unsung hero? We know Gravenberch. We know those, but who's the person you feel just deserves a little bit of praise from today's situation?
Yeah, I agree with the lads, but I'll say Dominic Szoboszlai.
Came under a lot of
Changed
grief
thing
early half.
changed things around. Yeah, second half he showed his work rate. A player that scores bangers, but the build up, he was part of a lot of it, and tracking back all of those things that you want to see us do to win the ball back as well. So yeah, credit to him. All the lads that turned it around. But yeah, Luis Diaz, I think it's his shirt to lose. I think he's the starting left winger for me. But I just want to add, I think interestingly, a lot of us are keenly looking at Slot to see how much can he get out of these players, because he's come in with some pedigree in terms of in his confidence is there to try to get the most out of a player. And if he can turn Luis Diaz or a Darwin Núñez into a better version of themselves than they were last season, then that is like another signing technically.
It really is, and he backs himself, doesn't he? Slot, I think he backs himself. He's looked at these players and said, I don't think he's. Again, I don't believe that he's sort of kidding us or doing a bit of kidology when he sits there and says we do have a really good team. We have a really good a lot of players, and I believe he's looking at them going, we've had a great start here with what Klopp has done and what they've got to do, but I feel like I can do certain things with certain players, and he's doing that clearly. There's a number of players who are playing really well. You see him; he's out there constantly coaching. He's constantly trying to get into people's heads to say what he needs you to do and what he wants you to do, and it's refreshing to see. To be honest with you, that it is a case of he is a head coach, and I think that description really fits him well, because that's exactly what he is doing. He's trying to coach these players to get that more out of us, and ultimately Gravenberch would be a new signing, because last season he was a bit part player. As Gravenberch comes in there and is a genuine first team footballer, whether he plays in an 8 or plays in the 6, that's just an added player, because last season he was just bit part. He could do bits here and bit there, but if you can develop a number of these players into, how can you drop him? How's his player out of the team? Then that's going to be invaluable. We will bring players in. We're going to. It's an absolute, for me, I believe it's an inevitability, but it has to be said, you can't just bring players in for the sake of it. We need to bring players in to make us better, and we have an awful lot of good footballers, to be totally honest with you, in my opinion. But we will have a quick read through there. Hell yeah, Trent changed the match to a winning one, but Salah was the tipping point to get the points. But without Gravenberch on the pitch, we were not conceded, as the midfield would have been run over. And he loves Szoboszlai too. Yeah, I thought he was brilliant. Great performance, great result. Arne Slot will take a lot away from that, things he'll want to improve, things that he'll be very happy with. But ultimately, he's come in there and he's delivering exactly what he said he was going to do. And at the end of the day, he's doing it very quietly. I don't think he'll get the headlines, but we've got a lot to say, that we've got a manager here who is putting a number of results together, and they're starting to look like there's a bit of a line here to be being created, one that's going to put us, in my opinion, inward of a title contention, shall I say. Maybe last season situation. Injuries are going to be a big one this season, and hopefully Jarell Kwanzaa's situation is not going to be one of those. Join us this evening, of course. Thank you, Jamie, for keeping me honest. Join us this evening, 7:30 for the regular stream. We'll be discussing more transfer news. We'll hear more chat about number 6s, number 8s, number 3s, number 4s, and all the other numbers between there and number 50. Join that. Enjoy. Have a good evening, and we will catch you next week. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye, everyone.